should be able to make some money on it.
That is way off. And within 24 hours, I had a buyer who came.
I think I'm doing like 30 now, and we have no signal.
Ideally, they would like me to take the car back.
Here comes the latest addition to my fleet, a 2007 Nissan Murano that I bought from Copart for a $1,000 bid. Luckily for me, Copart didn't lie, and this car does run and drive, so we're hoping to just drive it back, for which I have my friend Vova with me. I must admit, the damages on this car seem to be pretty weird. I can't imagine a collision that would cause such a deformation of the fender, but regardless, we must carry on and figure it out later. Well, actually no, let's rewind. Take a good look at this front wheel and try and guess what happens next. Did you get it? Yep, the front wheel only had 2 lug nuts on it that were probably not even tight. Now listen, even though I do understand that Nissan Murano is not an interesting car by YouTube standards, not even by my channel standards, as I'm mostly into German sports cars and that sort of thing, I hope you guys can understand that in order for me to pay my rent, since I'm not really making much money on YouTube, I'm kind of forced to do cars like this every now and then just to pay my shop's rent and, you know, survive as a business. As hard as it is to admit it, but I am struggling, and I've been pretty open about that on my channel. This channel is about my life rather than my dealership, rather than car DIYs. This is just me doing what I do, and those who enjoy watching it, watch it. So as we discovered in one of my previous videos where I talked about what it's like being a car dealer for 4 or 5 months, I kind of came open about the fact that I am struggling to make ends meet and have the business be profitable by any means, or at least even break even. Even that is hard sometimes. So instead of focusing on cars that I'm interested in, and I feel like you guys would be more interested in, I need to do boring cars that regular public is interested in and wants to buy and drive on their daily basis. Hence, a Nissan Murano. Now, this car became an issue approximately 15 minutes of me physically owning it. My friend Vova was driving the Nissan to the shop for me. I was driving in front of him in my S4, and in my rearview mirror, I watched the front left wheel come off as we were doing 65 miles an hour on a highway. One of the most terrifying automotive things I've seen in my life, and I've seen some stuff. This was, I mean, luckily, I'm pretty impressed by how the car just did not lose control. Vova luckily was paying attention. He noticed that something was wrong, you know, momentarily before this actually happened. The car started shaking and vibrating pretty bad. He said it was vibrating before that too, but he kind of overlooked it because it's a brand new car from an auction he is not familiar with. He thought maybe it has some sort of a vibration. We had to take off a couple of lug nuts from other wheels and reattach the wheel. Luckily, nobody hit the wheel. That would have been the worst thing that could have happened with this. And the wheel just calmly went into a median on the highway, the little ditch between different directions, and we were able to dig it out and reinstall it and get the car back to the shop. What I'm guessing had happened is either this wheel fell off and damaged this fender in the first place, and that's exactly how this car ended up on Copart, or this fender got damaged somehow else under the previous owner, and their insurance removed the wheel to take a look at the damage and see if there's anything behind the fender, see if there's anything else they need to add to the repair quote. And when they put the wheel back on, they never tightened down the lug nuts. But I would also say that the way the fender was damaged before seems very consistent with how it is damaged after our wheel fell off in our instance. So I feel like there's a solid chance that this had happened previously, and that's exactly how this car ended up on Copart. And we never checked them because, I mean, that's not really something you would expect to happen. I mean, from now on, I'm definitely gonna start checking how tight the lug bolts are on vehicles in the area where they seem to be damaged. And I'm also gonna stay mindful of the fact that this is what the damages look like when the wheel comes off. Because when I was looking at the images on Copart, I could tell that like this fender was not struck from the outside. It didn't seem like there was any damage from like a vehicle crashing into this. But because of the fact that this had happened at higher speeds, we definitely have some more significant damages on this fender than there were previously. So I'm guessing the previous owner had the wheel come off at maybe 25, 30 miles an hour at most, because the damages were definitely much smaller. Long story short, all we really need to replace is our fender.
which is a relatively inexpensive part, especially if I can find this at a junkyard. But in order to go to the junkyard, I first need to find out what tools to bring. So we're gonna pull this fender off while we're here, find out what tools are needed, and then head over to the junkyard. Looks like there's one bolt in here, which we can get to because the bumper is not secured. There we go. Obviously, there's multiple bolts that are supposed to be on the backside here, but they got ripped off. Like this little bracket, as you can see, that is completely ruined. All right, looks like this was a pretty easy install. Before we head over to the junkyard, let's take a look at what kind of a condition this car is in. I'm honestly quite pleasantly surprised. We have pretty nice black leather. I don't see any rips. I don't see any major issues with it. It's all nice and clean. We have heated seats. We have all-wheel drive. We have some nice cup holders. I'm honestly, I was never into cars like Nissans and Kias just because I don't like their quality. But honestly, this is pretty solid compared to domestics. This interior is pretty well designed. The rear seats have a pretty decent room. Also nice and comfortable. Black leather in great condition. Headliner is perfect. Memory seats. Keyless entry. I'm impressed. I'm impressed, little Nissan. Now let's get you back on the road and sell you, because I need money. This looks like maybe gray color, but unfortunately this one is damaged. Still a good backup plan. This is better than the one I have. It would also help if I could tell the difference between a Nissan Rogue and Nissan Murano. I don't know if they're share the same fenders or not. Okay, this is a Rogue. Another Rogue.
This one's Murano. Looks like it still has a fender that's not damaged. Ooh, this is pretty nice. The rust is not ideal, but if it's not too bad, it can just be painted over once you sand it down. But just to make sure I didn't miss any, let's take a good look around. No better options, so let's go with this one. Now that this thing is off though, the rust does look way worse, and yeah.
As unfortunate as it is that we didn't find what we needed, probably just gonna order one of those cheap replacement fenders from eBay. Another option would be just kind of straightening this fender out and selling this car for cheaper, but probably shouldn't, because that's gonna turn away some potential buyers. In the meantime, we have our hands full. We need to replace all of those studs because they were not in the best shape. So as you can see, we're missing a stud, and then the other ones, the threads are not in the best shape. Kind of just have to bang these out. Oh, easy. I'm guessing when the car bottomed out, shock somehow landed onto our axle, which led to our CV boot getting absolutely demolished. Here we have 5 new studs from a local auto parts store.
With the wheel studs replaced, we undo our axle nut as well as suspension bolt to get the axle out. And with a giant pry bar, I'm gonna try and get the axle out of the differential.
Easy. Wow, that is perfect. Replacing these boots is possible. I just hate doing it every single time. It just grease everywhere. It's kind of a pain in the butt to reassemble it. 130 bucks later, we have a Duralast special. Just Duralast. AutoZone special CV axle that is hopefully the same thing. It has been 2 weeks since that last clip. We finally received our new fender. Let's see what it looks like. So I've never ordered parts from this site before. It's called Painted Body Parts, literally. And they do exactly what you expect them to do. I think the paint looks pretty good. I don't see any defects. I don't think we got damaged in transport. So I'm satisfied, except it doesn't seem to match. It doesn't seem to be the same color. That is way off. Did I accidentally order the wrong one, or did they send me? Okay, so this is incredibly annoying because as you can see, based on this order confirmation, we did get the K21, I think, paint color code, which is exactly what this car says based on this sticker right here. And considering the fact that I was waiting for this part for the last 2 weeks, and that's the only thing that's keeping me from listing this car for sale. This is extremely frustrating. I was really looking forward to listing this car up like today, and well, I don't know if we can do that. So I reached out to Painted Auto Body Parts or whatever they're called, and saw what they were willing to do. They said they could, you know, respray it and send me the other one, but again, that would take at least a week, and then there's no guarantee that it would be of the right color, and I just don't want to mess with that. So what I ended up doing is reaching out to my body guy who has a shop right next door, and he resprayed this, and luckily the paint matching is immaculate, or as immaculate as I would expect it to be, considering the fact that this is a, you know, $4,000 car.
It's worth mentioning that Painted Body Parts did refund me for the paint work. I just paid for the fender itself. Honest mistake, it happens, they made it right, I am satisfied. However, it is unfortunate that this happened on my very first order with them, so it kind of keeps me from wanting to do it again.
Theoretically, this car should be complete. We should probably drive it around, make sure that everything is fine. As of now, we still have an ABS light on the dash. I'm thinking that's going to clear once we drive around a little bit after replacing our wheel speed sensor. And then we're gonna give her a wash and list her up for sale. Oh, and of course, tighten down our lug nuts because we don't want this happening again. So the other day I drove it around, and turns out that the lights did not go away. But when I read the codes, we had codes for both left and right sensors. I wonder if that one is just the old code that didn't get erased. And then this one is probably bad because this is where the wheel fell off and it slightly damaged the wiring. Long story short, let's throw this in and hope, really hope that this fixes all of our lights and we'll be good to go. There is this little blue connector over here. The other side was definitely easier to access. There was this guy right here, which hopefully works. These are not expensive OEM sensors, so I'm not incredibly confident in them, but I also know that wheel speed sensors are pretty simple. They just have a magnet in them, and that's how they read the speed, so I don't think there should be much of a risk with these, but you never know. Pull that guy out through here. As you can see, this little grommet here is damaged, likely from this thing being yanked on when the wheel fell off. Hopefully this comes out easily. If not, we're gonna have to struggle a little bit. Very frequently these do get seized up in there, and that seems to be the case. I guess we have no choice but to get the car up in the air and take off the wheel. My phone was getting a call, so I didn't manage to record this, but here we have our new sensor installed. Wasn't too bad. Just kind of drilled out the sensor and pushed it in, and that worked out perfectly fine. So now let's get this car back on the ground and make sure that these sensors work. All right, so here goes our ABS light on. That is still there. However, the traction control and all-wheel drive lights that are usually up there are gone. It is entirely possible that we just need to erase the codes and the ABS system will start working again, but let's just go for a drive and see if it will erase itself. I don't know what I was thinking. I just completely spaced out. So last time I was driving this around, I noticed that the speedometer seemed to have been a little, I don't know, glitchy. Oh yeah, see, there's like, it basically was showing 0 up until I was, no, I think I'm doing like 30 now and we have no signal. Son of a, this is so annoying. Let's try and erase the codes and see if anything changes, but I honestly very much doubt it. We're gonna be using our top-down scanner, as well as our Top Guru app. If you're interested in the scanner, feel free to use the link in the description to buy that. Okay, so we still have the exact same errors, so let's just see what happens if we... Okay, codes have been deleted. And as soon as I turn it on, the ABS light is still on. Sorry, I know you guys can't see it because of the glare. There it is. Let's go for another drive and see what happens. Just for, I don't know. Yep, still no speedometer. This is so annoying. Oh, there's a blip. Oh my God, and then the ABS. Ah, this is so annoying. I think we have no choice but to buy more expensive, maybe even OEM sensors. And now the brake light also joined the chat. But the speedometer is working. Works perfectly fine now, but the lights are on. So it's either we have no speedometer or we have lights on. Okay, it took me long enough, but I figured out what the issue is. And that probably has something to do with the fact that this wheel fell off. This here is our passenger side wheel, and as you can see, we have this little metal aluminum cover covering that brown ring that's supposed to go around the entire thing, entire bearing. I think it's attached directly to the bearing. And this metal cover, I'm assuming, protects the ring from any kind of damage. On this side, that looks perfectly fine. But of course, when we go to the side where the wheel fell off, first of all, we're missing that cover. It's nowhere to be found. It just doesn't seem to be here. But what we do have is a tiny chunk of that magnetic ring right here. Basically, I'm assuming our ring got destroyed when the wheel fell off, and that's why we're having this issue. I'm guessing we're gonna have to replace the entire bearing to fix that. And here we go. AutoZone has it in stock. It's 140 bucks, which is not too bad. It's actually cheaper than the OEM wheel speed sensor. And looks like it does come with the little cover as well as the ring itself right in there. What is kind of funny is the fact that this thing comes with wheel studs, which we had already replaced, but it is what it is. Back on the lift she goes. So all we have to do is remove the 4 bolts in the back, and supposedly this whole thing along with the hub is going to come out. And the last one is up there. There we go. I think I see some movement. There we go. Nice. All right, here she is. The bearing itself seems fine, but yeah, as you can see, we are missing the majority of our tone ring. Oh, and I guess the actual cover just rusted off. As you can see, this thing is, this is the remainder of that. And this is the remainder of our tone ring. Should be simple enough to go to AutoZone and buy another one of these. So let's get rolling. And here we go. This little guy is usually 140 bucks, but thanks to my commercial account and having some spending history at AutoZone, this was $64. More than a 50% discount. I think that is very, very nice. I'm very happy with that. Here goes our new tone ring, as well as the cover for it. Nice, shiny, and brand new. All right, fingers crossed, part 3. Gonna start by clearing our codes. Okay, we have speedometer right off the bat, or so it seems. ABS light, all-wheel drive light. How? Why? Why is this still happening? This is so freaking annoying. I'm so sick of this. All right, so I'm going to use the scanner once again to see if we can read our speed sensors by driving. Okay, so it looks like we are getting different readings, but we are turning, so... All right, so overall the speeds are pretty close. Yeah. Practically identical. As you can see, we have 4 readings up top here, each one of them showing me what the speed sensor is reading on each one of the car's wheels. If the sensors are functioning properly, all of these readings should be the same when I'm driving straight. All of these readings are matching up, showing me that there's not really any discrepancies in how the sensors are acting. As far as I can see, we have a few options. We can sell the car in as a state for a smaller amount of profit. We can get 2 brand new Nissan OEM sensors for the front end. The only way for me to get an OEM on there is to buy the brand new one from Nissan, which I checked is like $250. The Amazon ones that I installed were $20, which probably explains why they're not working properly. But again, like, these sensors are fairly simple. It is very frustrating that they're not working because it's not a complicated technology, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe there's stuff I don't know, but you just have 2 wires going in, you have a magnet activated with every pass of the ring, and
I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired. I just want this gone. As a last resort, I decided to take a closer look at the passenger side bearing. It's safe to assume that it was recently replaced just based off how new it looks. But first of all, I noticed that the 4 bolts holding it in place were completely loose. I literally unbolted them by hand. Secondly, I noticed this tiny little nick in the magnetic ring, aka the tone ring, which potentially is enough to cause our ABS fault. A moment of truth. Currently, no dash lights. Please, I beg you. Oh, I forgot to torque down lug nuts. Don't want to do that. Okay. Usually the light would turn on by now. I think we might be in the clear. This is very good news. Oh my gosh, I really hope we're good now. I think we fixed it. It must have been just the 2 tone rings. One that wore out with age, and then the other, either I or the previous owner or his shop broke. Tomorrow, once it's bright out, we're gonna get a car wash and take some pictures and list her up for sale. And hopefully we never see her again. Honestly, it's a pretty solid driving car. I like the interior. I'm pretty impressed for how cheap these cars are. I'm pretty impressed with what shape it's in. 116,000 miles, the body is in great shape. The underside is a little rusty, but that is to be expected. All the bolts were coming out pretty easily, even though, yes, some of them were coming out easily because they were not torqued down properly. But overall, very happy with the condition of this car, and I think we should be able to make some money on it. About a mile later, maybe 2 miles, something, I don't know. I didn't really keep track of it. We have no lights on dash. Everything seems fine. That is very, very, very good news. I'm so happy for this to be over. So, those Amazon cheap wheel speed sensors are not that bad. So don't hesitate to buy them. Maybe not like on a German car, potentially. Those cars are just like so sensitive to sensors, as funny as that is. They really, really like quality sensors and electrical parts. See you guys in a bit once this car is sold. Guys, I have really, really bad news. First, it started out really well. I listed the Nissan for sale, and within 24 hours, I had a buyer who came and signed the car. They took it home, and I was very, very happy. I sold it for $4,000 after spending approximately $2,200-$2,300 on it. So solid profit, enough to pay my rent this month. And within 4 hours, I get this text. Hey Artem, so the transmission is acting up. It's giving these codes. It has no acceleration from a stop. It takes a bit to get moving. I don't even know where to start. First of all, these Nissan Muranos are known for having pretty bad transmissions. They have these early variations of CVTs that were not reliable. In general, CVT transmissions are not very good, period, but especially those early ones from 2007 are known for not being very good. I kind of knew that after I bought the car. I didn't really research the car when I was buying it, as it was a run and drive car. I kind of trusted it. The thing is that I noticed that on Facebook Marketplace, very frequently, these cars will go for, $1,000 to $2,000, basically dirt cheap, with like 150, 160,000 miles at least, and having transmission issues. So I took that as a sign that these transmissions will usually go bad around 150, sometimes 160, sometimes even 200,000 miles. Mind you, this car has 116,000, which is a good sign. It has multiple, at least like 3 to 4 years, of normal amount of driving until those transmission issues will surface. So obviously my response to that was, at that point, I'm already sitting at home. I'm happy. My car is sold. I have something to pay shop's rent this month. I don't have to dive into my personal finances to pay for business expenses again. It's been rough. I've done videos on how it's been going being a car dealer for a little while now, and it hasn't gotten much better. I've learned some things. Like this Nissan was supposed to be something that is an easier sale, which it was. until this happened, of course. And then the buyer, Ted, who's somehow related to the actual buyer named Sarah, who was buying the car for herself. He's just somebody who knows cars and was helping her out with the purchase, and he did all the texting. So he asked me if the axle was out of the vehicle. I told him that yes. When they were here, I explained exactly what happened with the car. I told him that I did replace the axle on it. And he asked me if any fluid came out of the axle. When I was replacing the axle, there was zero fluid that came out of the car. I didn't think twice about it because, first of all, Audis that I'm very familiar with usually will have axles that are bolted on the outside of the transmission. So taking out the axle does not let the fluid pour out. So I didn't even think twice about the fact that there was no fluid that came out of the axle. Plus, even though some transmissions will have axles mounted in a wet location, in which cases, when you pull out the axle, you will have direct access to the fluid if you stick your finger there. Depending on the design of the transmission and the transmission fluid pan, that won't always pour out because sometimes the appropriate level of fluid in the transmission is going to be lower than the spot where the axle comes out of. So it's not going to pour out, which is why I'd never thought that was concerning. He said that normally you would see fluid coming out when you remove it. Obviously, he says that the codes don't look good, which I completely agree with. Any codes in the transmission are usually a bad sign. He says it could be a valve body replacement or a transmission being needed in the car, which is true. I, of course, apologize that this happened, and he asked to not process the title until the next day, just for him to have time to look into this issue and find out how bad the damage is. I agreed to that, and then I had the night to sleep on it, and I realized that, they had the car for 4 hours. 4 hours is a lot of time for something to happen to a car being treated incorrectly, or even it could be the fact that they just changed their mind on buying the car and decided to return it, and they knew that they wouldn't be able to return it without any major issues on the car. I don't know how much you guys know about used car sales, but generally they will be as is, meaning that when somebody buys a car as is, they have no way of returning it. It's their responsibility to make sure that the car is in good condition, which it was. I mean, they test drove the car, everything was perfect. You guys saw me driving that car, there was zero issues. I haven't noticed anything concerning. It was literally perfectly running, driving with zero dash lights. Now, these people seemed like great people. I had zero red flags when we were interacting. I was very happy with the transaction. Everything was respectful, everything was polite. I was very satisfied with that. So I don't think they would be the type of people to try and fraud me or try and mess up the car so that they can return it by any means. But there's always that 0.0001% chance that we are dealing with some sort of sketchy things going on in the back. Let me just read you my response. I said, I'm very saddened by the fact that the car has started having issues so incredibly soon. I'm sure this comes down to bad luck, but I hope you can understand this from my perspective. You know that there's nothing I could have done to hide this issue if it was pre-existent, if I was aware of it. While I'm 99.9% sure that you and Sarah had nothing to do with this surfacing hours after purchase, I need to protect myself for the remaining 0.1% possibility that the car was mistreated in any way. I sincerely hope that you understand my point and are willing to accept the following terms. I'm willing to send you $1,000 over any payment method that you prefer. There should be plenty to cover new fluid or even valve body transmission replacement if you do the labor. Luckily, there is no incorrect gear ratio faults yet, which in my experience would have been the real bad news for the transmission. So please make sure not to drive the car until this is resolved. On the off chance that this thing simply needs more fluid, you'll come out with a solid amount of cash on top. I wish I was in a position where I could take the car back, but this is simply not the case. So please allow Sarah to read this message too, as it's largely her decision. And Sarah, please accept my sincere condolences. Now, based on these codes, there's definitely a chance that somehow, some way, the transmission is just low on fluid, and that's why it's acting up. So there is a chance that once you fill it up, it'll do just fine, and it will drive for another 40, 50, 60,000 miles. Is there a chance that it does need a new valve body? Yes. Apparently, I didn't actually confirm this, but based on forums, you can buy new valve bodies for these transmissions for a couple $100. And honestly, even install at a shop would be probably just under $1,000. So I think that would cover them in that situation. The actual transmission replacement would be on the more expensive side, but it is also doable for $1,000 if you do the labor. And based on the conversation I had with Ted, he knows how to work on cars. He should be qualified to do a transmission replacement, just from what I've picked up on our conversation. Which is why, I am offering $1,000. I genuinely cannot afford to take the car back because rent is due in 2 weeks. I don't know if I'll have the means to pay that if I take the car back. And again, I mean, in many cases, most dealers I feel like would not even extend the $1,000 offer. Once you sell a car, it's gone, right? That's it. It's signed over to the new buyer. There's nothing you can do as a buyer or a seller. I feel bad enough to the point that I am willing to make this offer. This way, I'm still coming out with some profit, obviously significantly less, but at least I think I'm going to help them out. And hopefully I will maintain some sort of satisfaction from these buyers, even though I don't imagine them ever buying from me again. I'm doing my best to make this right with the means that I have. I genuinely wish I had the income and the ability to just completely take the car back and then figure it out myself. Fix it and then sell it later. But I genuinely do not. I do not know what will be involved in replacing or fixing this transmission. I am just not willing to take that risk. After all, they bought a perfectly running driving car. They had it for 4 or 5 hours and then it started having issues. We don't know what they did in those 4 to 5 hours. Not that I expect them to do anything to sabotage the car. There's always that chance. There's always the chance that they made a slight mistake I don't know what could have happened. But anything, that's the thing, anything could have happened in those 4 to 5 hours that would sacrifice the reliability of this car. And I need to protect myself in case this was operator error rather than a pre-existing issue with the car. I hope you guys agree. I am more than willing to hear your comments below. I am prepared for comments saying that I'm a trash car dealer and scamming people on their money. As much as I would hate to see that, I am prepared for it because that is just the reality of being in this business, which honestly I'm having a hard time with. I got into this because I really enjoy cars and I thought that I would enjoy doing this. And to an extent I still do. The amount of stress that comes with it has been immense. I mean, every month I wonder if I can make the rent. Every time I sell a car, I wonder if I'm going to have this sort of situation where they reach out to me with some sort of issues. Every time I buy a car, I'm stressing out whether it's going to have a blown motor and I end up having to take a giant loss on it. It's been so much. And I'm definitely an overthinker. Potentially people who are more optimistic would be able to take on this stress much better than me. And I'm probably making this harder on myself by being the way I am. We're currently waiting to find out whether they're going to accept my offer. And we'll go from there. I'm also prepared to offer them the Ford Expedition. That will be in another video. That is in rough shape, but I do have it listed for $1,800, and I think it could be a decent deal for them to just take that second car. You just get 2 for 1, and hopefully they can manage the repairs on the Nissan. And in the meantime, the Ford may or may not serve them better. That's the thing with cars, is that it is just unpredictable. At any given moment, a car can have a catastrophic failure. So I just thought I would update you guys on what's going on, just so that you can get my emotions and my side of the story right off the bat as this is happening. And I will update you as soon as we have a response. Now, there's one thing you can do to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and that is subscribing and hitting this like button. Because if I were to make any decent income from the YouTube channel, I would probably not have to rely on the car sales as much, and I would have probably taken that car back and given them their money. So please make sure you subscribe and like this video if you would like to help regular public as well as myself in situations like this. Hey Ted, how are you doing? Good. Come on in. Here's the promised update. Ted came by and we discussed possible solutions, and even though ideally they would like me to take the car back, I let them know my situation and explained that I am unable to do that. As much as I would like to, I just can't. And luckily they eventually agreed to taking back $1,500 of the money they had paid me, and figuring out the repairs of the transmissions themselves. I genuinely hope that this repair ends up being cheaper and easier to do. Potentially, it'll be fine with just a transmission fluid flush. Maybe worst case, they're gonna put in a remanufactured valve body or something along those lines. But I think we came to a compromise, and even though the situation is far from ideal on both sides, at least we came to an agreement, and everybody leaves this with some more or less okay resolution. I mean, this is just part of the business. I understand that, but this is just so frustrating. You know, this is the first car that I bought with the intentions of just making it an easier sale. Something that doesn't require me to spend a lot of time working on and makes me some profit and whatnot. But it is what it is. I guess we just have to persevere. We have to learn our lessons, which is staying away from Nissans and their CVT transmissions and carrying on. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.